Hello everyone, my name is Awat, and today I'll be discussing colors in a game. So I don't really like to be a tutorial kind of guy, but I do like it when my teammates have a clue of what's going on. So this is one of those videos that I kind of just throw out there in an attempt to help people, but if it doesn't go anywhere, I won't be too sad about it. But yeah, in team games online, I see a lot of people struggling with colors. So I'm making this video to show you guys what I call the colors, and hopefully this will help. Some people are just colorblind, and that's absolutely okay. I don't blame them at all. So you could have types of colorblind such as red-green colorblindness, where reds and greens come hard to you, or you could have the colorblind that makes it difficult to distinguish purple from blue. So if you suffer from this, I recommend going to the endgame setting and making your own custom colors with the colorblind setting. I'm not going to go into the nuances into that because that actually goes pretty deep once you start looking into it. I'm just letting you know that you can adjust the default colors at any time you like. If anyone wants, I will go into the nuances and deeper details of this custom color setting menu, but not today. Today, I'm only going to be going over the default colors and what I call them and why. So I'm going to run through the colors in chronological order. Going to shoot through the first few because they're as obvious as it gets. Hardly anyone is confusing these. So player 1, blue. Player 2 is red. Player 3 is yellow. Player 4 is green. Now, player 5, a lot of people call this teal, but I'm pretty sure it's closer to cyan. If I see someone saying teal online, I'll know personally that they're talking about this color in specific and not blue. So yes, this is cyan, but it could also be called teal online by the player base, but please do not call it blue. This is one of the colors that don't get mixed up as much, but I have seen a few people call it blue. Player color number 6 is obviously pink. Player color number 7 is orange. And at this point, it seems we've gone through all the basic colors and now we're on to the weirder ones. These weirder ones are usually going to be the source of people's problems. First up, we have color number 8. Now, I call this one burgundy, but a lot of my friends call this maroon. And if you Google both these colors, they're pretty close to it, so I think either one of those sound fine to me. Now, referring to this color online is a nightmare. I'd say over half the players online either call this color red or purple, which doesn't make sense because half the time they say that there's already a red or purple present. Like for the sake of communication, you should absolutely avoid using an already established color, especially because I have this screenshot here of this guy asking red not to attack him. And in this case, it's obvious that he's referring to this color, color number 8, burgundy, maroon, whatever. But there's been so many cases online where both these colors are on the same team or they're just both enemies to you guys. So it's essential not to reuse colors when designating a person. And if we as a community just reinforce that red only belongs to color number 2, which is red, then it makes it a lot easier when someone calls this anything but red that they're talking about this. So that we'll have that kind of understanding regardless of what word someone uses to describe this color. It kind of reminds me how in zombie shows they try to use any word but zombie, like in The Walking Dead, they'll call them walkers, biters, rotters. But, we all know that they're referring to the same thing because they're obviously not referring to people. So it's the same case where if we as a community agree not to call this color red and say red exclusively for the second color, then when you call this anything but red, we'll know, hey, you're talking about that thing. Just as long as you're in the relative ballpark and not calling it exactly red, we'll get you. We'll get what you mean. I've heard dark red, I've heard other red, I've heard the weird red. I get what they mean each time because I know they're trying to distinguish it from actual red, which is color number 2. Just like how in The Walking Dead, when they call them whatever name they want to call the zombies, they're talking about the zombies because they're obviously not talking about the people who are alive. Same thing with number 9. A lot of people call this green even when there's an actual green on the field. Just like color number 8, if we as a community just establish that this color is not the green from number 4, then we should be good regardless of what kind of green we call this, because we'll know that we're not talking about the main green. But I personally call this one sea green. Now I know sea green is kind of tough because sea green has a lot of different variants. Unlike burgundy, which I can make out that what color it is each time, a lot of different cultures define sea green as different things, mainly because their water is different, so they'll want to do that shade of water for their sea green, and that just leads to different definitions. Kind of interesting when you think about how these things influence culture, but we're not here to talk about that. Let's just say I call it sea green, but you call it any kind of green that's not the normal green, I'll assume you're talking about this one. So just like previously, if you call it the other green, the weird green, I'll know that you're talking about this one. Moving on to color number 10, I gotta admit, this one is a nightmare, even for those that are not colorblind. It is like just a slightly lighter, desaturated version of the already existing orange. There's hardly any difference, and side by side you might get confused a lot. I personally call this color peach. I've seen someone call it salmon. I actually think salmon's a really solid one. And then I've seen one person call it coral because they just got off playing Among Us. I like the sound of peach or salmon, but just like the two that came before it, call it anything but orange. The other orange, the weird orange, that orange, whatever, and I'll know you're talking about this one. Now, color number 11 is the purple. This one is clearly established as purple, like dominant purple, unlike color number 8, which is an in-between purple and red. Without a doubt, we call number 11 purple here. If you have the color blindness that chops off your ultraviolet part of the spectrum and therefore you can't see purples, then this will appear very blue to you and might look almost identical to number 1. In some rare cases, people have even told me that they confuse number 1 for purple. So while people actually don't get the name wrong of number 11 very much, I know that it is very still visually jarring for a lot of people. So I definitely recommend tweaking with the custom settings if you need to. But like I said again, this video is going over the native colors only. I'll go over the custom settings later and what they changed and what are the best colors to put in my opinion in a more detailed in-depth guide because they do change how the campaign looks, how the main menu looks, and a lot of other things when you have custom colors enabled. But for the sake of this video, I'm gonna do it for the people who have no interest in playing it with anything but the default colors because once you start modifying them, it might cause some disparities or miscommunications. But thankfully, in the slot number 12, we have gray, which is as neutral as it gets, it's gray. This is a color that anyone can see regardless of any color blindness, and it is without doubt gray. I know a lot of people online may call this white though. It's a very popular choice online to set play number 12 to white. So you see someone calling it white, just assume they're calling it gray. And then the nature color is intended to be this sort of reddish brown. But obviously being the nature color, everybody just calls it nature. So yeah, I call the nature color nature brown. And that is all 8 colors and what I call them and what I think the community should do about them. I don't blame you, you got your colors confused at some point. Especially because some of these colors are just very similar, especially the oranges, but it should just be a common thing to not call them the same thing, even if they do look similar. You'd want to find a way to distinguish them if you're using them as a call out and if you want your team to succeed. There are many alternatives to player colors that you can call out people by if you are struggling and you don't want to mess with the default settings because that will affect your communication with players online. So first up, you can just call them by their number. The number represents what player they were in the lobby, not the color. So the host is going to be number 1 each time because the host will occupy the first slot each time. Then the second slot will be number 2 and so forth. So just look on the scoreboard and call them by the number if their color is too confusing for you. You can actually modify how the scoreboard looks by clicking F10. At least by default it's F10. If you modified your settings, it may not be F10 anymore. If you're on a laptop, you might have to click FN plus F10 since laptops like to use their F keys for a different function by default. But yeah, you can modify it several different ways. Show names, don't show names, don't show anything at all. Pretty cool stuff. You can actually do this with the timer as well with F11. Show time, show frames per second, and difficulty, and show nothing. But yeah, the other option to distinguish people is to call them out by their names. But I know some people might have some confusing names sometimes, so that's why I just personally prefer the number option if someone's struggling with the color. Especially if half the lobby is playing the F10 option that hides names anyways. If you're gonna say Glizzy Gobbler 300 is attacking, then we might be a little confused and we're all obscuring the names. That being said, what if you can't distinguish orange from peach or purple from blue? So you yourself are genuinely unsure as to who's attacking you. Well, a little secret is you can click on one of their units or hover over a group of their units. I recommend clicking because if you hover over an area and it selects even one of your units, it's going to prioritize selecting your own units over theirs. But yeah, you click on their units, it'll tell you their name and number. So that's how you'll be able to know who's invading you if you can't physically see the color difference. The best part is, if you guys realize, it'll actually even tell you if this person is allied or an enemy based on the icon next to them. So it'll have a little dove to indicate it's an ally or a little sword to indicate it's an enemy. And then one final thing while talking about default colors is it is actually important to how team games start. In case you guys didn't know, where you are in your position of team game is based on your color. So remember earlier how I was talking about how blue is color number 1 and gray is color number 12? Well, don't confuse that with the player lobby number now. So earlier I also mentioned that the host is going to be player number 1 regardless of what color he picks. That is the player lobby number. Do not get that confused right now with what I'm talking about, which is the color number. color number is true and exists in the background secretly regardless of what the lobby is doing. So the color number for blue will always be color number 1, and the color number for 12 will always be color number 12. And even if you have the custom setting enabled where you change color number 1 to a different color, it is still color number 1, if that makes sense. Like that slot is slot color number 1. And this color number determines where you are placed in team games, specifically the order. So if you want to be on the edge, being blue or gray guarantees you'll be on the edge each time. If you're playing in a random lobby but have one friend you want to be next to, then be green and yellow because those colors are right next to each other. So regardless of what color the rest of your team picks, you know you'll be right next to your friend. This only works for allies though and does not influence how enemies spawn. So let's say, for example, you're playing a free-for-all and you and your friend pick yellow and green, just like in that previous example. Since you guys are enemies and the game wouldn't have a necessity to put you guys next to each other. So despite being green, for all you know, you could spawn next to red and gray, while your yellow friend would spawn next to purple and blue in a free-for-all. Since where each individual enemy team is independent. It's only the order of allies within. If you've played AWOT Nomad, which is my custom Nomad map that spawns you randomly, unfortunately this color system is actually disabled on this map. While it'll still try to put you close to your friends, there will not be a specific order in which you are placed. But if you play any of the other 31 of my maps, then this color rule enables and is enabled on all vanilla maps as far as I know. I'll be showing you guys some examples on screen in the background while I talk about this. But yeah, that's the nuances about the default colors and how they affect you all. So hopefully this will help you guys, know what to call out and understand the color system a little better. I'm pretty sure you play 1v1, this information is mostly worthless to you, but it's nice to have this knowledge in case you play any team games in the future. Definitely, I think a fun part of RTS is the difference between team games and 1v1s and how it just changes the gameplay completely, even when you play the same character between the both of them. But that's just me rambling, nothing too important. If even like one or two people ask me about how custom colors work in the colorblind settings, I will go over that if anyone would like, and what all changes it makes to your game. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Just doing a PSA. So hopefully, maybe one of my teammates in the future will have the knowledge. Even if not, though, it's honestly not that big of a deal. I'm just making this video just because, it's better to know than not. But if someone calls color number 8 red or purple, I'm not going to be that peeved. I'll probably get the memo. But yeah, thanks for watching as usual, and see ya.